Remove the wheel, use a 7/8 socket or a 22mm socket. Take the lug nuts off. And take the wheel off. With the brake hose, take this rubber grommet and just slide it off the bracket. Just slides up. Just like that. Push that out of the way. Take this nut off for the sway bar link. I'm going to use an 18mm wrench, and to keep the stud from spinning, I'm going to use a T40 socket. And loosen it up. Helps to use a ratchet wrench once you get it loose. Take that nut off and slide that out. I just lowered the vehicle. I am going to support the lower control arm just using a floor jack. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on it, just have it so it's right up to the lower control arm. Under the hood, you can take this cap off. It just slides right off. And you can use a 15/16 wrench or a 24mm wrench on this nut. They make a special tool for that, but if you don't have that tool, just use a wrench. Then to prevent the shaft from spinning, we're going to use a T50 socket. I'll just hold that. And when the nut is finger tight, just have it a couple threads on. We'll take bolts out down below next. Use an 18mm socket, take the nut off. I'm going to use an 18mm wrench on the bolt side. Do the same on the bottom one. Now you can take the bolts out. Sometimes they slide right out. Sometimes you have to use a hammer and a punch. Now separate the knuckle from the strut. Now grab the strut from underneath and take the nut off from up top carefully. And you can slide it down. There you go, pull it up. Before we slide the new strut in, just take this plate off, just set it aside, just keep it close along with the nut. And take the strut assembly and just slide it up into position. Put that plate on and put the nut on. Here we go. Line the knuckle up with the lower part of the strut. All right, you can grab a screwdriver or a pick, try to get these to line up. And you're going to want to replace these bolts. They're torque to yield bolts, so get new bolts. There we go. Once you get one in, the other one's a little bit easier. You can lower the jack at this point and line the bottom hole up. You just use the screwdriver, get it lined up. And install the nuts. And torque these to 63 foot-pounds. And then you want to tighten them an additional 60 degrees. You can use an angle meter. If you don't have an angle meter, do the best you can. To tighten this nut down, I did support the lower control arm, again with the floor jack, just to raise it up a little bit. And then I'm going to use a 7mm hex socket, just to keep the shaft from spinning, and use the wrench and tighten this down. If you have a ratchet wrench, it might be helpful. Now I'm going to torque this to 41 foot-pounds. If you had one of these caps, put that cap back over the nut. Now take the link and slide it through the strut hole. If you have to use a pry bar, just pry down on the stabilizer bar, slide it on. Put the nut on And you want to tighten this down the same way you took the old one off. And torque the nut to 48 foot-pounds. Now line this brake hose up and push the grommet into the bracket. And just push it down in place. Install the wheel. Put the lug nuts on. Now we're going to torque the lug nuts to 111 foot-pounds in a star pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. I'll just go around again, double check. After you've done this job, you want to keep in mind that you should bring the vehicle to a local garage and have it aligned so that you don't have premature tire wear.